Hello, beautiful souls. I'm so excited to see you today again in another video. It's so long since I made longer videos, so this was a popular request in the Facebook group that I host. So I'm going to reply to this question. But first of all, if you're new to my channel, hello, my name is Elizabeta, and I'm a quantum narcissistic abuse recovery coach and healer, holistic therapist. And my main mission here is to help you fully recover and fully heal from abuse, so you live your best life and you start to actually improve your life after narcissistic abuse and after generational trauma. Okay, so the question that we have here that was very popular, like many people ask me this, and that we're going to reply to and respond to in a more detailed manner, is basically our shadows. And today I'm going to answer this question in 3 topics. I'm going to divide this video in 3 parts, and so basically the first part is what are shadows, exactly what are shadows in our part of our subconscious, what are shadows in when we go into the shadow work, what are shadows in the self-development journey, in the self-growth, discovery. How are these shadows formed in ourselves, and how to heal them, or more exactly, you will see, I don't like healing, I prefer to say transmute them. Okay, so first of all, we start with the most important question, right? What are shadows? Like, how exactly do they appear? How are they formed, right? So shadows, basically, when you get involved in the self-development journey, when you get involved in the growth, when you start going to therapy, and when you start to confront your toxic traits and your wounds that you get from the generational trauma, your shadows are basically, I would say, they're your toxic traits, your wounds, this part of yourself that they belong to lower levels of consciousness, and that society usually tells you that they are not acceptable. So some example of your shadows are, I would say, for example, when you get jealous, but to the point of controlling behavior, when you get jealous and you start to overthink a lot. So these are basically your shadows, like these darker aspects of your higher self, of your higher self is like the positive aspects, even though I don't like to call them positive aspects and negative aspects, because then you start to demonize your emotions that are not accepted in society. So let's just call your shadows your unhealed wounds, okay? The wounds that you get from generational trauma, from society. If you grow up in dysfunctional households, these are your shadows, like jealousy, controlling behavior, being passive-aggressive, or, for example, numbing your emotions, like not feeling anything, and hiding from confrontation, not being honest, lying, manipulating. These are your shadows, okay? And this is very important for you to understand. This also can be your limiting beliefs that you get from trauma, basically your toxic patterns that you get, or your coping mechanisms as well, so like unhealed wounds that you get from abuse, from trauma, from your childhood, basically. So you get the idea. Also, another example I get, self-sabotage, being too cocky or arrogant, and not accepting help because you think that you don't need help anything anymore. So these are basically your shadows. Now, The next point would be, how are your shadows formed? This is a very interesting question because we usually don't know. Like, we reach adulthood and we're like, okay, I'm an adult now. I'm expected to function in society. I'm expected to be all perfect. Even in childhood, even like when you're growing up when you're a teenager, you might be expected to be like the perfect version of yourself. But let's go to a point where you are an adult and you are expected to be fully functional. And then suddenly you start to go into your journey of introspection. Maybe you have a spiritual awakening. Maybe you have a dark night of the soul. And then you're like, oh, I'm not so perfect. Like, something is wrong with myself, right? So your shadows are basically formed when you have a dysfunctional family, when you have an abusive family. That happens in, I'm sure, like in most societies, there's some level of dysfunctionality. And bear in mind, trauma is not only what you get. Trauma is not only like the way you are treated, because many times we assume that trauma is, abuse, emotional, psychological, physical, or even spiritual, with spiritual gurus, like fake gurus and all that. Trauma is also what you don't get. So if you grow up either in a very abusive family where there's like plenty of arguments and plenty of fights, or you grow up in an environment where people hide from confrontation, people, avoid talking things out, people avoid communication, and, maybe your family acts as if nothing happened, as if there's nothing wrong, like, let's pretend everything is perfect. This is also trauma. Okay, so maybe you have this pattern where you don't like confrontation, where you're afraid of telling how you feel, because deep down you are scared that this person is going to either abandon you, which is like most cases, judge you, not accept you, or you're afraid of, for example, this person is going to scold you or yell at you. It's the same thing. It's non-acceptance. It's conditional love. It's not unconditional love. It's conditions. So these are formed because of this family situations usually, or maybe you grew up in a more or less normal household, and then you go to romantic relationships and you encounter these situations, and then you get traumatized, obviously, and then you leave the relationship, you break up, but you have these memories, you have these patterns that I'm not worthy, people are going to treat me like the worst. It happens, but mostly it all starts with the family, okay? It all starts in our household. Then this is the basics on what are shadows and how are they formed. Now, the next question would be, how would you heal those shadows? And now, as you remember, as I mentioned before, and please, if you're enjoying this video, if you're enjoying the vibe, really please consider subscribing down below and liking this video, because it helps me to create more content for you free of cost. Obviously, if you want more personalized advice and guidance and support, I have all the links below. I have a specific exclusive Facebook group for abuse survivors from narcissistic abuse, and my mentorship offers and containers, all down below. Now, back to the topic, how to heal your shadows. And as I mentioned previously, I don't like using the word healing, because healing in society, usually it involves a process of fixing ourselves, assuming that we are not good enough, so we need to heal. What I believe is that while we are born in a planet where we are not accepted unconditionally, in most cases by our parents, because our parents were not accepted by their parents, and this circle continues through generations, it's also crucial to accept ourselves the way we are. I'm not saying we should accept our toxic patterns, self-sabotage, limiting beliefs, our shadows basically, because this blocks us from fully getting to our potential, from fully achieving our goals. But we also have to accept ourselves. We have to accept our quirks, for example, like these things that we are really passionate about and that society really told us, oh, you're weird. These interests and these hobbies are not for us, and you were feeling like you are not enough and that you're some weirdo. Maybe you were bullied in school. So this is why you have to balance it out. You have to balance in accepting yourself unconditionally as you are now, right now. And at the same time, you have to work on not only healing your wounds, but transmuting them. This is the key word I wanted to use. Transmuting them not only involves healing your wounded inner child, but also gets into the process of accepting yourself unconditionally, confronting yourself, having accountability of which toxic patterns that you have are both hurting yourself and people around you. For example, if you don't want to go to therapy, it happens with clients that I had that are men, usually. If you're a man and you feel ashamed of going to therapy or like confronting these insecurities that you have, this is something that you have to face within yourself. You have to be like, hey, why am I afraid of going to therapy? Am I afraid of being judged? Am I afraid of being laughed at by my family? That I'm weak? Because many people think that going to therapy or just starting your journey of journaling, for example, and healing, many people still think this is a weak thing. Many people think that getting in touch with your feelings is being weak. So this is something that you have to get on if you're starting with this journey. You have to confront yourself. You have to face your shadows. You have to put yourself in front of your shadows and be like, hey, why am I being the way I am? Why do I have these limiting beliefs? With money, for example, why do I believe that if I have like a job in the spiritual niche, why do I believe that I have to sacrifice myself? Why do I believe that spiritual people need to be poor? Right? Doesn't make any sense. And it comes from movies, for example. It comes from this brainwashing that we get from people around us. There's plenty of examples. We are brainwashed. We're conditioned. And this comes because confronting yourself, being vulnerable with yourself, not only with people, being vulnerable with ourselves, being our authentic truth, is scary because we never were taught on how to do this. Many times by our family, we are taught that hide when you feel anger, hide it. In men, for example, when you feel anger, you have to be like explosive. Anger in men is encouraged, while in women, we are discouraged from feeling anger, and we are taught to be this submissive, nice, good girl, and never say or express our boundaries. While in men, they are not often taught about how to properly express their emotions in a healthy way. Like they are not taught on how to talk things out with their community, with other men, because as soon as they do so, many times they're mocked, many times they're laughed at, they are like, oh, you're gay or whatever. It doesn't make any sense. So the first step is confronting yourself and doing it on your own before like actually connecting with your community, whether you're a woman, whether you're a man. Okay. First, facing your ego. Your shadows is like your ego. It's similar. Many times people say, for example, in Buddhism, people say that the ego is bad. I wouldn't say like totally the ego is bad. The ego is, I would say, like our identity. Obviously, most parts of the ego are negative because they block us, they limit us. If we want to experience fully joy, happiness, and abundance in life, we have to face our ego. We have to face this sides, aspects of ourselves, our inner child, our inner teenager, or even our adulthood that we feel that we don't deserve it. Okay, so this is the main point that you have to remember if you want to properly heal and transmute your shadows. Basically, face your ego, face your shadows, face those uncomfortable feelings that you refuse to heal and that you constantly hide away and run away from them, whether drinking, partying, or just procrastinating. It's all the same thing. You don't want to face those emotions because it's uncomfortable, right? So yeah, so this was all for today. Remember that if you enjoyed this video and if you like the vibe, the general energy, please consider subscribing and liking this video and even sharing it with your friends. If you know someone who might need this advice and this guidance, share this video by clicking on the link down below. And if you want more support, more personalized, intimate support, a safe space, you can contact me down below on my Instagram, on my Facebook, or on email, and I will respond to you and we can book a session or a long-term container, because I really want to help you. I really want you to understand that you are not alone, and that if you feel, whether you're a woman or you're a man, and if you feel you need someone to listen to you and to actually guide you and support you along the way, I'm here for you, okay? So this was all for today. Thank you so much for listening. I'm so happy that I saw you today again, and see you in the next video. Bye. Love you.